Business Express on Smooth 98.1.
Let's go. Mics are up. You're live now. Hey, hey, hey. Good morning, Lagos City. This is Smooth 98.1 FM. This is Business Express. This is Rotus. Good morning to you. Good morning to you. What are we talking about today? So much to talk about, but please, send in your thoughts. Send in your feelings on how things are going in the business environment. What do we start with? Our WhatsApp number, 0809-444-0981. Do send in your name. Please attach that to your messages because we're going to start doing some surveys. We're going to start doing some surveys with our listeners for all our different programs. So we want to make sure we know who you are out there and, well, you know, when you're sending in your messages. Also, of course, our website, www.smooth91.fm. Also, tweet at us at smooth91fm. And I'm trying to get as many followers as Kim Kardashian. So, Rotan quotes, ROTANKWOT. What is happening? We're going to be having Afrinvest with us today. We're going to be talking about their economic outlook. But before we get to that, so much going on. Yesterday was the UK Africa Investment Summit. President Buhari attended that. He's hoping to get some money from the UK Africa Investment Summit. So that was in the United Kingdom. That was yesterday. The DFID, that's the Department for International Development, which is a outfit from the UK government. They're saying that over the next 5 years, Nigeria should expect about 200 million pounds. I think that's about 172 billion naira or so in investments coming into Nigeria over the next 5 years. So we'll see what comes of that. Beyond that, starting today and going until Friday, is the World Economic Forum. The World Economic Forum is happening in Davos, Switzerland. A lot of world leaders are going to be there. I believe that Oscar Onyema is going to be there, I think. I think the central bank governor might be there. I'm not too sure. Okay, wait. We have the NPC meeting coming up in a couple of days, so maybe he'll be back for that. But I'll check and see exactly how many of our representatives are going to be in Davos. But I did want to point something out, a survey that was done by the World Economic Forum regarding the pressing issues that businesses and economic leaders are focused on. It's climate change, right? It's very interesting. I'll share the chart on Twitter. Again, do follow us on Twitter at Smooth91FM. Oh, shout out to our YouTube crew as well. For those of you following us on YouTube, we're out streaming live on YouTube, www.youtube.com/smooth981. So it was climate change, all right? And I think 5 years ago, the same survey that was done was income inequality. Then I believe the next issue that they faced in the I think it was 2012 was income inequality. 2013 it was 2008 2009 it was the financial crisis, and then as things developed from there, each year at the World Economic Forum they were looking at different issues, but climate change is the big thing. You know, how pollution affects the environment, reducing greenhouse gases. Now, of course, us in Africa with burning our generators and so on and so forth, it's not, many would say that that's not really a fight that we should be trying to take on right now. But with the amount of money that is out there in the world and that is focused on raising awareness, I think businesses here in Nigeria and other African countries that actually focus on climate change can actually get some major backing, right, from companies NGOs overseas. I'll be talking more about it on Business Hub later this evening at 5:15. So do tune in for Business Hub for how SMEs can actually use climate change to their advantage in order to get some dollars and pounds from NGOs overseas. All right, we're joined by Afrinvest, a man I haven't seen in a while. Happy New Year to you, sir.
Yeah, Happy New Year,
Mr. Abiodun Keripe. Abiodun Keripe. I was going to say Okuri boy. Hang on, let me get your microphone up here.
Hey, good morning. Good morning, ladies.
Now we can hear you. Good morning, Biodun. How are you doing? I haven't seen you in a while.
Yeah, I'm fine.
Head of research at Afrinvest,
Yes.
So we're talking Outlook. I just talked about the UK Africa Investment Summit. Just talked about the World Economic Forum and what they're going to be looking at. As far as Afrinvest is concerned, what are you guys taking cognizance of with regards to the economy, Nigerian economy in 2020?
So we have a slightly different approach to our outlook this year. We're taking a sort of a decade view for the outlook, given that we just exited a decade and we're just entering a new decade. So we did a sort of a review of the last decade and look at the performance of the economy. You know, the performance was not so impressive, you get, compared to the decade before that. So last decade we saw growth at about 3.7% compared to about 7.7% growth
Mm.
of the prior decade. And the tale for the last decade actually is also a tale of two halves, where we saw growth stronger at the early part of the decade and much more slower at the later part of the decade. So the
Mhm.
2010 to the 2014 era, we saw growth at about 6.1%, while for the later half of the decade, we saw growth at about 1.2%. So you could ask me what was responsible for the growth at the early part of the decade.
It was oil.
Agriculture.
Oh.
Yeah, agriculture, oil, stable. Macro environment. We saw income growth. We saw low inflation level. We
Uh-huh.
saw relative stability in the FX environment. Manufacturing and services sector also contributed to the growth we saw at the early part of the last decade. The later half of the decade, that was when we began to see a highly elevated volatile macroeconomic environment underpinned by the crash in crude price.
Yes,
And
yes.
then also by the failure for the government to implement reforms that could reset the path of growth for the Nigerian economy. So these are the things we saw. And if you cascade that to per capita income growth, you
Yeah.
will see that per capita income on average at the early part of 2010 was around the 2,300 level, while by 2016 we saw it at $2,669 level, and by 2018, which is like the tail end of the decade, per capita income had fallen to like the 2,200 level. So basically, this just shows to you
We're
how
getting
the
poorer.
economy exactly we're poorer.
We're getting poorer.
Yeah,
That's what it is.
that said, now the outlook for the new decade now is underpinned by the fact that if we do not have a real focused and structural change as to how we manage the economy, we're going to continue to see a new decade where the challenges of the past would continue to haunt economic growth. So what this means is that look at the 2019 to the 2023 era. The President Buhari has sort of been somewhat slow in implementing the sort of needed reforms that would reset the economy on the path of prosperity. If this is likely to continue from now to 2023, that means the first half of this new decade isn't going to be telling so much positive story for the economy. And then the second half of this new decade will now be predicated on the ability of the new president after the 2023 election to sort of come up with policies that will be market driven, policies that will see to expansion in agriculture output, policies that will cut back on subsidies, policy that will cut down on inefficiencies in the system. And these are the things that will deliver Nigeria to prosperity.
Yeah.
If we could find a leader that could take us to
So if I'm hearing you correctly, Biodun.
Yes.
By the way, I have a friend named Abiodun Okoriboye, which is what I almost called you. Yeah, and he listens to the show. So but again, it's Abiodun Kiripe of Afrinvest. I had a research. Now, if I hear you correctly, you've just jumped ahead to 2023.
Yeah.
You've mentioned a new president. So have you written off the next 4 years?
No. I have not written it off.
Yeah.
I've just said that, look at how the president has started in terms of implementation of reforms, coming about policies and sort of initiatives that could drive Nigerian economy and take us away from the cycle of 3% growth that we've been seeing. That it seems we're stuck in. If we continue at this pedestal, then we're going to be stuck with that 3% growth for the first half of this new decade.
Yeah.
And for anything to change, to take us out of this 3%, in fact below 3% growth level in the rest of the new decade, that means we have to see a leader or a set of leadership that will have market reforms in mind, that will be looking at how to expand agriculture output at a level far beyond
what we have now.
If we don't get that, then we are still going to be doing the below 3% growth for the next 10 years,
which is below population growth,
and
doesn't take us anywhere. Okay, let me read a couple messages here. Let's see. This is Moses says, great to see that the British are interested interested more now in the African economy. A bigger one is coming in June, the France Africa Sustainable Cities Summit in Bordeaux, France. Moses, are they going to be talking about climate change? I'm very interested because I know that Mr. Emmanuel Macron has made that a big thing. All right, Benga isn't so big on climate change. Benga says after the Western world moved on from heavy industrialization, they are now shouting climate change. Come on, with heavy industries like Dangote refineries coming on stream, we have no business with climate change. Oh, ha, Benga. The point, and I'm going to get your thoughts on this now. Yeah. Benga, the point I'm making is that, Benga, assuming that you are a small business in Nigeria and you're doing what you do, you're getting by. If you were to raise awareness on climate change, you could have maybe conferences, you can invite NGOs, essentially the Western powers that are trying to spread awareness are willing to use money to support people in Africa that want to raise the same awareness for climate change. So you're not really doing too much. I mean, you can try to reduce how much you use your gen or other things, but the key thing is that what I'm saying is that if you raise awareness for it and possibly partner with them, you're helping your business, right? You're getting where do you stand on the climate change thing? You think Africa should not have no business with it?
We should have a business with climate change.
You think so?
It is a core part of our outlook for the next decade.
Oh, it is?
This new decade, yes.
Okay.
Because we see all of the reforms that's happening globally. The tactical reduction in the use of the traditional source of energy, which has been crude-based, to renewable energy. This is critical. This tells a lot. We begin to see increasing usage of electric vehicle, reduction in biodiesel, more usage of renewable energy. This is critical.
In the Western world, though, be careful with when we don't have electric. We don't have electric vehicles.
In the Western world.
Right.
This is critical also for the Nigerian economy. That in this new decade we are in.
Okay, I get you.
How are we positioning ourselves
to get there?
If you notice, when I talked about the core drivers for the new decade, I actually did not mention crude oil.
Okay.
Because the core drivers of growth globally are changing. They are getting tactically reducing from crude to other sources.
Gotcha.
And this is all connected to the outlook on climate change or to climate change. Climate change is a big thing. Look at what's been happening in Australia. Look at what recently we see a pipeline explosion somewhere down Lagos, right?
The what was it now? Abule area. Killed 5 people, destroyed.
Exactly. All of this as a way to it ties back to the level of CO2 we're emitting that goes back to destroy the ozone layer. So basically, climate change is a big deal, and Nigeria must also be heavy in taking a role in climate change to curb the level of CO2 emission. I
actually didn't know you had that in your outlook, and I'm very impressed. Afrinvest, you guys, you're trying. I think it's something that folks should really look at in the long run.
Yes.
And as we speak now with the World Economic Forum going on in Davos, that is the discussion point for everybody that's attending. Okay, good stuff. Let's see now. Okay, our listeners, however, they're on a different vibe. Okay, Yinka says climate change. See, last will be all right. The Western powers are trying to move on from fossil fuels after they have cashed out. See, this is the same thing Benga was saying. See, the next 50 years we are stuck with crude oil. Fact is, once this green energy thing comes online, Africa will be left behind. I don't even have light right now. See, as for Australia, they better ask for forgiveness. Okay, so I think he's talking about the bushfires going on. Yeah. So how do you feel? Okay, if you look at what Yinka is saying, you look at what Benga is saying, they pretty much said that, look, the Western world, when they were going through industrialization, they polluted the entire environment with their factories and everything. Now they've moved on, and they're telling us who are still trying to catch up that we should not pollute the environment.
See, everything is a learning curve.
Right.
It more starts from somewhere.
Yeah.
And where it starts from cannot be perfection.
Right.
Perfection then comes as you progress down the line. I mean, even for Nigeria, where did we start from? We started from crude. We are still stuck with crude. At some point, it wasn't even crude, it was agriculture.
Right.
Then we discovered crude, and then crude became the big deal.
Right.
And since then, we've been stuck with crude. The world is moving away from crude. So it's not just about the Western world when they needed to expand and grow and develop. It was crude they used, and now they've cashed out on crude, and then they're trying to move on to other sources of power.
Right.
It's about what is good for the earth. It's about what is good for humans at the end of the day. Continued usage of energy sources that emit so much CO2 is
not going to help us in the long run. All right, good stuff. Christian says 3% GDP growth is too generous. If oil prices slump, we'll struggle to do 1.5%.
I meant it's going to stay below.
Okay,
3%.
below
We're
3%.
going to be
Okay.
stuck at below 3%.
So
Good cycle.
reforms. That's what we need. Okay, we had a question. Okay, so look, let me
Yes.
tie this. There was a question from Shay. Actually, we were talking about this on the marketplace yesterday, but I need to tie this question together. So the Punch ran a story about a guy, I think his name was Sheyi Ononigbide, who was arrested to the tune of for fraud, 574 million. He was promising forex returns of 20 to 30% for people.
Yes.
He was arrested on Friday. So Sheyi now said, okay, well, Rotus, because I was telling people that this was fraud. He was promising people money, backing up with forex. I was not trying to demonize forex. I was trying to tell people, please separate. Forex is risky, it's volatile. But this is a man who was just promising people. He could have been promising it based on agriculture or sand or whatever. So Shay now sends a message. She also sent it on Twitter. It says, "Hello, Reuters. I asked a question this evening on the marketplace. What other investment options are available for retail investors? Because rates, fixed income rates have passed. TB rates
are down.
Where do people go?
I mean, the market operates in a very interesting way.
Yeah.
So there are two broad asset classes in the Nigerian capital market, which is the fixed income and the equities market.
Okay.
Each of them have the distinct drivers. Now, when the driver for one is significantly weak or low, it's an impetus for the other asset class. So what we've seen through the 2018-2019 period was a period where we have a high yield environment backed by the actions of the central bank, backed by policies from the central bank. At the tail end of 2019, they then decided to tactically separate the market in such a way that rates can begin to drop in an attempt to also drive real economic growth. Now, what does that mean is that equities, which has not been enjoying so much attention, so much of capital inflows, will now begin to attract the attention. And that's what's been happening since the last week of December 2019, even till this moment I speak. The increasing flows to equity has been quite significant. I mean, the PFAs, the institutional guys that have stayed away from equities, are beginning to look at their dashboard, their equity dashboard again, and transaction flows has been coming into equity. So equity is just about the play for 2019. The outlook
2020.
For 2020, pardon me. It's about the play for 2020. The outlook for equity is quite bullish and is driven by the low yield environment, which is across board globally, advanced economy. The yields there are pretty low. And Nigeria also, TB yields are still low. And now, so that is one key driver. Another is that corporate performance is also going to keep improving. Now, you may tell me there are one or two key headwinds. Yeah, I get it. But then the key driver is that corporate performance will continue to grow. Take, for instance, the consumer goods sector will benefit for the newly implemented, wage increase, right. Now they will benefit from that because there will be increase in demand, and which would spur revenue growth for these players, and which is critical for the for the performance of this sector. The banking space also, although we are seeing a bit of restriction in terms of how the CBN is monitoring them
with the LDR policy and all of things.
The bottom line is that their balance sheet will continue to expand, and as long as this balance sheet expand, you'll expect to see decent growth in the performance.
Okay, but of course I should. So you have said
my
equities.
take is equities.
Equities. Now, of course, you've said equities. I do have to say, of course, for people before you get into equities, you should consult a financial advisor like an Afrinvest before picking out. So Shay, there's the answer. It looks like people are bullish on the equities market. Okay, real quick, we're running out of time. Andy says your guest is very right. Has anyone has any idea how hot it is these days? Global warming is real low. Let's see here. Ihai, I think, says climate change is real, even at our face. Look at our weather changing like chameleons. Since the Western world has invented new innovations to control the depletion of the ozone layer, we should key into that. This is Ihai from Ojo. What else do we have here? Okay, we have, how do we bring China and Trump's America to join the climate change talk? This is Prince Ike. It's true though. China has heavy heavy emissions as well. What else we have here? Modupe says this administration has a number of good ideas, but they need to commit to a path and follow through. We complain that we're dependent on oil because only a few people pay tax. They've introduced VAT. Now everybody wants to be exempt. We complain about fuel subsidies. Oh yeah, raise electricity prices to a feasible point. No, we put it on hold. One government official will announce something, another will counter it. We say invest in local health sector, but the president is the highest patron of UK hospitals. We need a consistent approach to fixing our problems, not lip service. That's from Modupe. Valentine is giving me the air traffic control signals. We're rounding up. Thank you all for your messages. We'll probably continue this tomorrow if I've missed any questions. Abiodun Kerikwe of Afrinvest, Head of Research. Thank you for joining us. Hope to see you again soon.
Yes, Richard.
All right.
Business Express.
Thank you. I had to raise it.